Hello, are you here to debate?
Yep.
All right, what's your name, major pronouns?
Manny, 20, he, him.
Okay, Manny, what topic do you disagree with on the board?
Um, Probably number four is what I would want to talk to you about.
Okay, what's the issue with number four?
So, my first question is, why do you think we should teach LGBTQ topics in school?
Because I believe we should teach topics on almost every society and or culture and or aspect of society in school. And second, because it teaches tolerance.
Okay, and by topics, do you mean like sex education or like history or like what exactly about
All
LGBTQ should
of
we be?
all of all of the above. We should have comprehensive sexual health education from kindergarten through 12th grade, and they should be learning about the topics related to history like throughout school and as they're doing social studies and U.S. history and all of that. They should all be folded into those topics.
Um, I feel like that's already kind of happening with like the history stuff. Like I don't know anyone that excludes that stuff, but when it comes to like sex education, do you think it's appropriate for like kids to be learning about like like anal and stuff like that? Do you think that's
Who
appropriate?
is who is teaching kids about anal in school?
I mean, I was in high school not too long ago, like 2 years ago, and they were teaching that, and that was under like that was in the name of being inclusive towards I don't know, LGBT gay people, but I feel like that's inappropriate, and that stuff can be learned like outside of a school setting.
Yeah, so sexual health education isn't about just teaching kids that sex happens. It's about all the aspects surrounding sexual education. So part of this would be teaching children that like the name of their body parts as well as consent. Because what we see is children who not only know the name of their body parts but understand consent are targeted less for childhood sexual assault. We've got like 50 years of evidence to back this claim. We also know directly from the mouths of predators that they tend to not go after children who are able to tell you the name of their body parts because they know that they're more likely to get caught. So these are the things we would be teaching starting in like kindergarten. Uh, by the time somebody's in high school, like 16 and up, like, yeah, we'll probably be teaching them like what sex is. We would probably be teaching them about like how they can stay safe during sex. So a part of this would be teaching children who are going to engage in like anal sex, teaching them how to keep themselves safe when they do engage in anal sex, because it is a part of sex that they are undoubtedly going to do. So yeah, there would
Well,
be no.
no,
I don't see the issue teaching this.
undoubtedly. It's
Uh,
like sexual health class is like about reproduction and stuff like that. Like undoubtedly doing anal sex, I don't think that's true. And also, like the stuff you said previously, that's good and well, but that's not really what's happening in schools. They're not
It is.
teaching stuff like to keep
Do you
kids
know how
safe.
I
They're
do you know
teaching
how
like
I know it's what happens? Because the National Sex Education Standards literally has this outlined in the standards of like what to teach
that
and when to
that
teach it.
that doesn't mean that's what's happening. Like you're not a teacher, so like you're not in the classroom hearing certain things. Like, dude, I've heard like actually like nasty stuff from coming out of teachers' mouths about like, oh, this is how you should do this and that. Like, it's stuff that doesn't make sense to teach to a child, and I don't
Yeah,
think it's appropriate.
again, you didn't hear it as a child. You heard it in high school, right? You heard it
Well,
as somebody in their late teens. So I don't understand what the issue is.
no, yeah, you're right, but that stuff is happening more and more now at to kids at a younger age.
No, it
Like,
isn't. You have no evidence of this.
okay, do you have evidence proving like the contrary, that the standard that you
Yes,
mentioned earlier is being
yes, yes,
followed?
yes, because it is the national standard for sexual health education. Yes. This is the standard that is given to schools for how they should teach these things. Now, whether a school is or isn't is a question you have to bring up to
Yeah,
the
you can't
school.
confirm
But
that.
again, I don't have the burden of proof here. You're claiming it's being taught in a wrong way. You have the burden of proof for that. My proof is these are the standards. The things they teach in the standards are consent and healthy relationships, anatomy and physiology, puberty and adolescent sexual development, gender identity and expression / sexual orientation and identity, sexual help, and interpersonal violence. Those are the six. Those are the six criteria, and those are all taught on a basis from an age appropriate basis. So like certain things like sexual health, when it comes to age appropriateness, we would just teach kids again, probably that like cleanliness is a good thing. Anatomy and physiology, we would just be teaching kids what the name of their body parts are. We probably wouldn't get too into puberty and adolescent sexual development because they're not going through puberty yet. So there's no reason to teach that part to them yet. You're sitting here going, well, we're teaching kids how to fucking like put it in the butt, and that's not the case. You're not going to find that anywhere.
It is the case though.
Where?
I don't have like evidence like that I can present you because it's all like circumstantial or like what I've seen.
Well, circumstantial evidence would still be some level of evidence. You're not providing any. You're saying, well, I learned about anal, but you are in high school. You were, I assume, over the age of 16. Kids over the age of 16 are having anal sex, so we should probably teach them how to be safe when doing it, how to not hurt themselves, because they're doing it that way.
Yeah, I was in high school, but I'm saying nowadays they're teaching this stuff to kids who are not at a high school level. They're young. Where
are they? Where do you have a school that is teaching children under high school age, so this would be like 14 and under, how to have anal sex? Show me anywhere in the world, anywhere in the continental United States that's happening.
I've seen like countless videos of parents complaining about the stuff that their kids come home with, and it's like not age appropriate. So I don't know. That's my evidence.
None of that is evidence.
I mean, my overall point though is like, if I can't prove that this is happening in certain schools and in certain schools it's not happening, is that it shouldn't be taught in school at all, because we can't prove that.
Well, it's not. It's not taught in school. I went through the criteria, and I can give you the detailed things for each of these, right? What it is that these things are referencing when it's teaching these sort of things, okay? But the point is that butt sex isn't being taught in schools, especially under again, there are. I'm sure probably classes for high schoolers that are taught about anal and safe sex precautions, because we need to be teaching high school age children that are having sex how to safely do it, right? Because we know that comprehensive sexual health education leads to a decrease in STIs, a decrease in teenage pregnancy, and it leads to, especially for adding consent as a factor, it leads to decreased assault. So these things are kind of important that we do.
Okay, I agree. It's important. I just feel like it doesn't need to be like taught in schools. And when I say schools, like young age kids. And
great, good thing it's not.
That there's no evidence for that, but I think it happens more than you probably think it does.
See, here's the difference between me and you, right? You go, I think it's happening. Not that I've seen any evidence from it, but I just think that it's happening. I go, it's not happening when we look at state and federal standards around sexual education, and we notice that it's not in the teachings.
Well, no, I presented my evidence, but you don't want to believe it. I'm just telling you what I've seen.
You didn't present any evidence. You just said, I think I saw this sometime, but that's not evidence, right? That's not even anecdotal evidence to just say, I think I saw something. You need to be able to actually detail where you saw it, what the details of the situation was, what the school was, what the age of the children was. That would be evidence.
Okay, a different question. Do you think we should like teach about LGBTQ topics in like separately, like as its own sort of unit in schools and classrooms?
It can be its own unit, but it doesn't need to be divorced from the topics that are from like the subjects that we already have, right? Like most LGBTQIA topics can be taught in social studies, because social studies is the study of society. Just like we have a unit on like slavery in history class, or in math, you might have a unit on algebra or times tables, right? You just have a unit that's taught in a different class. I don't think we need I don't think kids need to go to like LGBTQ 101, right? Like, it's not college. They don't need a detailed class for each thing.
Yeah, but the way you have it on your board, like it's a topic, is like that should be the case, because in reality,
No.
I mean, people are learning about that, but it's like it seems like you want it to be like divorced and like
Nope. There are plenty of schools in the United States that are trying to divorce themselves from teaching any type of LGBTQIA plus topics. This includes history. Tons of schools have removed like Stonewall from their syllabuses, right? And so I'm saying these topics are important and should be taught in school. Now, whether those topics are their own subject is going to be the school's decision. I think it's kind of silly when we already have a subject that teaches these things. So my claim is these should be taught in school. That's it.
So where's the evidence that there's schools actively trying to not teach this stuff?
Oh, sure. I'll pull it up for you. Go to my sources. So I'll pull it up on the screen just so the chat can see it too. So we know that states are banning LGBTQ plus subjects in schools. And there are a lot of students who say they were never taught these subjects to begin with. 11 states have passed laws that censor discussions around LGBTQ plus topics, which makes it so that these students can't really learn this. When we look at laws surrounding curriculum that have to do with LGBTQ, we can actually pull up a map to see which states have these censorship laws. It's actually up to 19 now. States like Florida, states like Texas, states like Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, all these states have laws that quite literally ban specific topics in school that are related to LGBTQ plus individuals.
Okay, so you would say that's bad.
Yes.
Why?
Why would this be bad? Because of all of the reasons that we've talked about so far. When you teach these subjects, it builds tolerance. When you teach these subjects, it allows for less hatred inside of schools. It also leads to less bullying. We've seen that schools that have an active gay-straight alliance on campus show a decrease in bullying. So like that would be like the biggest reason.
Okay, so do you think we should teach students that some people are attracted to animals, some people are attracted to kids, so we can build tolerance for that? Is that also,
I wonder if there might be a difference. I love when people bring this up. I wonder if there might be a difference between adult consensual sexual relations and fucking pedophiles. I wonder if there might be a difference between that, guy. Do you think, Manny, there might be a difference between teaching kids? Do you think there might be a difference between teaching kids a literal about consensual adult relationships and teaching kids that like pedophiles are okay? Do you think there might be a difference between that?
You said we should teach, we should build tolerance, and we should teach about everything that goes on. So that you could make an argument that I would keep
no, you can't.
Safe. No,
you can't. It's a ridiculous argument. The reason it's a ridiculous argument is because one is predicated on consent and the other is not. So yeah, it is a completely ridiculous argument.
Okay, so you said, how about if we teach kids that it's okay if they identify as a cat or a dog? Are you down for that?
We don't teach that, and that's not really a thing.
I mean, dude, 10 years in the future, that could be normal.
No, it's not. You're just doing a slippery slope fallacy. And the problem with the slippery slope fallacy is that you can't connect the slope. You're saying A will lead to B, but you can't show the demonstration of how A will lead to B. You're just saying these are things that will happen, except they're not. There is no spot in the LGBTQ for like. There's no spot in the verbiage and in the teaching and there's nothing in there for like people that are cats. It's not really a thing, right? Because it's not a thing that happens. We don't have this big push for people to have fucking to identify as animals. Like it's not a thing, my guy.
Yes, dude. I go to school. I went to school in like the Pacific Northwest. I've seen kids sitting in litter boxes in the hallway.
No, you didn't. No,
you
haven't.
Yes,
no, you haven't.
See, the fact that you don't even believe me just let you know how ludicrous this is. I'm not lying to you.
You are, unfortunately.
So the fact that this doesn't exist in the LGBT criteria.
It doesn't.
There's no one doing this. Not a single
I didn't
person.
say there's no one doing it. I said there is no push. Hold on. I didn't say no one's doing it. There are totally going to be people that like identify with characteristics of animals, right? But none of those people actually think they are animals. They know that they're people. They just identify with traits from animals. What I said is there's no push in the LGBTQIA community, right, to make people cats. This isn't a thing. And you did not have litter boxes in your school. This shit has been widely debunked time and time again. Nobody's bringing in a fucking litter box and sitting it in your school hallway. You know that's not true. And if it was, you would have taken pictures of it and been able to show me evidence of it.
I have a picture of a kid wearing a furry outfit, and also
being a furry and sitting in a litter box are so fucking two different things, my guy, and you know that. You're like sitting in a litter box is vastly different than being a furry.
Okay. So trans people make up what percentage of the population?
What is the relevance?
Why?
What's the relevance to the conversation?
Why is it so important that we talk about this community and this specific subsect of people when they make up such a small fraction of the population?
Do you think we should have wheelchair ramps?
Well, that's different. See, that's an actual.
Is that different?
It helps them like.
If
we have a wheelchair ramp,
that helps them. Okay. Do you think that like teaching trans inclusivity might help trans people?
Help them with what?
Acceptance. It helps lower suicide rates. It helps them come out at an earlier age and not deal with the societal stigmatization that's pushed around them just by being trans.
So teaching
helps them avoid bullying.
About being trans helps them come out earlier and accept themselves. That sounds like we're just teaching people to be trans. That's why this shouldn't be in schools, because you're saying it's like a thing of we're helping these trans people like find themselves, but in reality we're just turning kids who into like trans kids. Like
it is impossible. Let me just tell you something. Let me just tell you something really, really big here. It is impossible to turn someone trans, quote unquote. Being trans is an identity that exists within yourself. It's part of your innate gender identity, right? We know that you can't.
It's impossible to turn someone trans.
Yeah, you as this person don't have control over turning another person trans. That's not how that works.
So if you take a kid and you put him in like a home with like, let's say he's adopted into a family. Like, have you heard of the stories of like gay parents adopting a kid, like literally telling them, "Oh, you're gonna be gay or you're gonna be trans"? Have you heard that before?
No, sounds made up, just like everything else that you've been talking about. Do you have some evidence of this?
So if you put a kid in front of like a TV and make him watch all this stuff about trans this, trans that, it wouldn't influence him at all?
Correct.
I don't believe that.
Okay. Do you have evidence that it turns them trans?
I do have evidence because.
Okay. What's the evidence?
When you're under the age of like 18, your brain is easily like manipulated, and
that's not evidence.
Can be easily influenced to do certain things.
That is not evidence. That is not evidence.
Yes, it is.
I asked specifically for evidence that it's possible to turn a child trans. I would need evidence of this. You saying, well, kids are easily manipulatable. Yeah, sure. That doesn't mean that their gender identity is, right? Like,
So,
give proof.
okay.
I need some sort of evidence in any of this. You haven't provided evidence for anything you've said. You just keep saying, oh, I think this is true. Cool. Prove it.
Okay.
Because what we actually have when it comes to studies is the proof of to the opposite, that it's actually not able to do it.
Okay. I think there's a difference between, like, a kid can think they're trans, but they're not actually trans. But do you agree that someone could, like, mistake themselves? Like, if a kid starts, it's like if a little boy starts wearing dresses all of a sudden, and he's not actually trans, but he thinks he is, and he can grow up out of that. Do you think he has the potential to grow up out of that if he's not actually trans, but he's just, like, mistaken in his identity?
Yeah, I think kids can mistake their identities when they do not have the proper education behind these
Oh,
things. And that's what teaching this would help prevent. If we
oh,
provide
actually,
them
okay.
with the
Let
proper
me ask my follow-up.
education, hold on, I'm just going to finish my point. If we provide them with the proper education, they won't get confused about their identity because they'll be given the tools to better understand themselves.
Okay, well, you're saying the exact opposite of what I'm, like, saying is a possibility of.
Yeah, we
A
have
kid is
differing.
mistaken in his gender identity. He goes to school, and then the teacher tells him about, oh, it's okay to be trans, blah blah blah, and then the kid confides in the teacher, and the teacher tells them, oh, what you're experiencing is like, oh yeah, you're actually trans, and then they grow up thinking that
Teachers
they're
can't
not,
tell
and
a
then
kid that they are trans. That's not how that works.
if a kid goes to a teacher saying, I like dresses, I like wearing girl clothes, and then what a teacher wouldn't confirm that under your
No,
uh, standards of, oh,
no,
we teach inclusivity and tolerance,
no. They can't tell
and
you
then
what they are.
back here,
They can't tell you what you are. They can only listen and say, "Okay, I hear that you're experiencing this. What do you feel like you are? What do you think you are?" They can't respond back with "you are X" because again, it's an internal identity, meaning the only person that can internally identify you is you because it's internal. The kid could just, this could be a boy that just likes wearing dresses. You have a mistaken understanding of what trans people are. And because of this, it's affecting all your worldview on something where instead you could just research into what trans people are and it would clear all that up. Like, truthfully.
uh, okay, yeah, you were right about the teacher. They wouldn't directly say that unless, well, some might, but they would definitely indirectly do it. Um, and what you said, my understanding of trans people is wrong. How so?
Yes.
Like, I don't
Because
even know how.
your belief is that somebody just wearing girls' clothes would make them trans. That's
No,
not
no,
what it
no. I'm
means to be
saying a
trans.
kid. Saying someone could be mistaken, like at a young age, into thinking they're trans because of this like thing that they like to
Well,
do,
a
like
kid
wear.
wouldn't know if they are trans if they're never taught about what being trans is. All a kid would know is that they don't feel good when they're called boy. So for instance, if we have a trans girl going to school and she has not come out yet, she doesn't even know what trans is. What will happen is she will internalize, right, a hatred for herself because of the way she feels about her sex. She doesn't need to know what being trans is. She can just go, well, every time someone calls me boy, I hate it. Every time someone tells me to do boy things, I hate that. There's some internalized thing in me that's making me disconnect with this. Now, to her, she just feels wrong, right? She doesn't feel the way her peers feel. So she's just internalizing this feeling of feeling wrong. And that's going to fuck with a kid's head. That is going to fuck with a kid's head more than almost anything they can go through, is them having this feeling fully inside of themselves that they are so much more wrong than their peers. But what can happen is if we teach kids that, hey, there's this thing called gender dysphoria. And what often happens is with gender dysphoria, it will affect trans people more than cis people. And what can happen is you can have this feeling where you disconnect from your sex based on your gender identity. So you can have a gender incongruence that leads to this stress that you're feeling. And that can help a kid start to go, oh, I'm not wrong. This is what I am. And it's not that everybody's going to hate me for being this way, right? Because they won't hate me for being this way. So I can outwardly be who I am without all the hatred. And then what's going to happen is we're going to see a decrease in the trans suicide rate. We're going to see decreases in depression, decreases in suicidality, decreases in anxiety, decreases in all of these comorbidities that we typically see with being trans, right? Because they're going to be accepted and tolerated, which is the goal.
Okay. I will concede that I might not understand the trans experience as much as I would think, because obviously I don't know, right? But everything you said does make sense, but I think why can't we leave this to the parents of the children instead of implementing it into the schools? Because the parents can teach their kids this thing better, because it's their own kid, it's their own private relationship, whereas in a school setting it just doesn't seem to make as much sense, because in a classroom, let's say there's a classroom of 100 kids, only one of those kids is going to be trans potentially.
Children have two advocates typically throughout early childhood life. It starts with their parents and their doctor. Those are their two advocates. Then when they enter school, they now have second or third advocates, which would be teachers and counselors in schools. If I have a kid who comes from a very conservative family, who might face violence or ostracization, or even worse, be kicked out of their home because they are of the LGBTQ, what should we do at that point? Because we know of children who are homeless, the majority of them are part of the LGBTQ community. And a large portion of them are kicked out or abused in homes. So they either are kicked out or leave. So should we just allow these kids no advocates outside of the home? What if a parent doesn't want to teach these things to their kids, and then their kids just get fucked over in the long run? What if a parent finds out their kid is gay and they want to send them to conversion therapy, which we know increases suicide rates?
Yeah, but the parent is the main one responsible for their child. The teachers and the school system aren't. So the kid can
that's
do
not
all that
true.
when they're 18.
That's not true. Every single teacher is a mandated reporter. Do you know what that
true.
means?
Your parent is the number one person responsible.
Wait. Do you know what it means to be a mandated reporter?
The parent is the main person responsible.
You're breaking up.
Yeah, if a student says, "Oh, my parents abused me," a mandated reporter is someone has to report abuse or something.
Mm-hmm. Now, here's the thing: mandated reporters don't just do it if a kid comes to you and says, "Hey, I think you're being abused." You also have to take context clues, right? Now, if I have a child who's coming in with a black eye, but never tells me that he's abused, but every other week he has a black eye, I'm going to report that, right? Right? That's a child who's, if they're getting beat at home, whose parents should not be their sole A, B, or C guardian, right? Because they're being abused. A parent who abuses their child loses all rights, in my opinion, to what should be the well-being of that child. Not full stop.
Okay. Not wanting to teach your kids about trans issues is not equivalent to abusing them.
Sometimes it is. If I have a child who is gay and I have a parent who wants to send that child to gay conversion camp, that's abuse. We know that conversion camp is abuse because we've think. You don't think what?
I don't think gay conversion camp is a thing.
It is.
Is that
not only is conversion camp still a thing for gay people, it's a thing for trans people as well.
Okay, if you say
even if you're not going to a camp, conversion therapy is still widely used. It's a practice that widely uses.
Yeah.
So
So, but
again,
like,
my
my
whole
my
point
main
is that children deserve advocates outside of the home. They deserve to be, even if they're out of the home, they deserve some level of autonomy and some level of agency over themselves. So if I have a child who wants to be out at school but doesn't want to tell their parents, that's their prerogative.
Okay. So do you think religion should be taught in schools, or should we leave that to parents
I think
to just
religion
like
should be
teach their?
I think religious history should absolutely be taught in school. Kids should be learning the history of religion as it correlates to the world. Yeah. I would teach
Not
religion
not the
religious
history of religion. I'm saying,
they
like, should they be
should
taught?
children should not be getting a secular education in school. They should not or not a secular, a
Yeah.
theistic education in school. Children should not be learning should not be taking like Bible study in school. It should be taught in a historical lens. Now,
So
if
you
they
would
learn
say
about it in
the
school and go,
parents
well, I
of the
want to learn
kid,
more about this at home, yeah, that's fine. But these are not the same. These are
the
not the
parents of
same thing. This isn't analogous.
no, it is, because
It's
you
not.
would say the parents of the kids, depending on what religion they want to share with their kids, should have that right. So why isn't it the same with trans issues or LGBTQ issues? Why can't the parent decide if they want to teach their kid, and that should not be involved in the schools? I don't
Yeah,
understand
I
the
would say
difference.
parents shouldn't have an option to bow out of like learning the history of religion in school. Yeah, no, they shouldn't be able to bow out of that. Just like they shouldn't be able to bow out of learning LGBTQ topics. There's a difference between teaching something
Well, I'm not
exists.
talking about
Hold
the
on. Please
history.
understand. Please understand. There's a difference between teaching something exists and telling you that this is what you should be. LGBTQ stuff in school is saying this exists, not you have to be this. Teaching religious history is saying this exists, not you have to be this. So this analogy you're making doesn't work.
No, but you're conflating like the
I'm
teaching the
not.
history of something versus just teaching like I'm
I'm
fine
not.
with teaching the history of LGBTQ like history, but like if you're gonna sit in a classroom and teach kids about like it like basically telling little kids it's okay to be this, but not in a tolerant way, in a like a manipulative way of saying
Nobody
like
teaches it
you're
in a
basically.
manipulative way. Zero people do that. It doesn't
But
happen.
why is it that is there more like trans people now than there was like 100 years ago?
Yes, because acceptance is higher.
Really, because acceptance is higher.
Yes.
If accept, why would it matter about acceptance if you're truly a trans
Are you
person?
joking?
Wouldn't you
Because
be trans
trans people
regardless?
don't because trans people aren't going to come out if they live in a society that kills them for coming out. Just FYI.
So what about if schools are implementing it into their curriculum, and then that's influencing kids to want to be trans? Is that an option, or
It
it's just
isn't
about
though.
acceptance?
Except it isn't. There's no evidence
Why
that it
why
does
is it
this.
why is it not?
Because there's no evidence that it does this.
So where's the evidence for acceptance being the reason why there's more trans people?
Sure. Can you see the screen at all? Can you see the stream anymore?
Yeah, I have the stream pulled up.
Great. So what I did is pulled up a graph that shows how much the rate of being left-handed in the United States and how. Do you notice that between 1920 and 1960, the rate shot up? Like it went crazy up. Do you know why that is? Do you think we were teaching left-handed indoctrination in schools and so more people came out as left-handed? Or could it be that prior to 1920, we used to literally beat the left-handedness out of people because religious fundamentalists believed to being left-handed was linked to being the devil? So when we tolerated left-handed people, do you know what happened? The rate of left-handed people went up because they didn't have to be in fear anymore of being left-handed. It is the exact same thing. Like quite literally to a T, it's the exact same thing.
That's kind of different, but
Different how?
I wouldn't say it's the exact same thing.
Different
to a
how?
T.
Why did the rate of gay people jump exponentially when we stopped burning gay people at the stake?
Okay, we didn't burn gay people at the stake, and also gay people have risen exponentially because it's being taught more, and they're teaching kids
I'm
that
sorry.
it's
I'm
okay
sorry.
to be
I'm
gay.
sorry. I'm sorry.
In other words, saying
I'm sorry. Hold on. yes, we did historically punish gay people by being burned at the stake. Do you realize why gay people are called the F slur? It's got a pretty crazy history if you'd ever want to learn about it.
Well, I'm talking about. I'm sure that happened. I'm not gonna say it didn't, but I'm talking about like in America in like recent times. I don't think it like in the last like 200 years. 300 years. I don't think that was happening, unless it was.
Okay. The overall point here is that when you are tolerant of something, the rates of that thing are going to increase. When we started allowing for interracial marriage, the rates of interracial marriage jumped up. When we stopped being intolerant of gay people, the rates of gay people jumped up. It is the same with trans people. When we started to be more tolerant of trans people, the rates went up.
I mean, yeah, but interracial marriage was like illegal at a point. It wasn't like we weren't tolerant and then we were. It was like it was illegal. Now it
Something being
isn't
illegal would mean you're not tolerant of that thing.
Yeah, but okay, in the last 30 years, it wasn't illegal to be trans 30 years ago, and it's not illegal to be trans now, but there's way more trans people.
Because
What I'm saying is
society
that's
has
because of
become
indoctrination.
more tolerant of
You're
trans
simply,
people.
there's a, I, that's not true, but
It
okay.
is. It quite literally is.
Okay, so, but you like with the left-handed example, like you were saying they would beat the use of the left hand out of people, which is actually a thing. Like if you're left-handed, like at an early age, and you're getting beat whenever you write with your left hand, you could become right-handed as a result of that. But you couldn't beat the trans out of someone if they're
Trans
truly
people, especially trans women, especially black trans women, face, even right now, higher rates of violence than any other demographic of person in the United States, especially sexual violence.
What is that?
So that means that they're less likely to come out because they're afraid of violence, my guy. Holy shit, bro. What do you mean? What does that mean? If somebody is going to express violence, if they come out, then they're less likely to come out because they don't want to be hurt.
So you're saying that teaching about these topics in schools will help keep trans people safe?
It leads to more tolerance, which leads to less bullying and less violence, yes.
I can agree that is like one outcome, but there's also a bunch of other outcomes that you're refusing to like consider.
The outcomes that you can't provide evidence for? Yes. I don't consider outcomes that have no evidence, yeah. Yes.
I mean, you're willfully just choosing to ignore it.
Or you can't provide evidence.
Like I did provide.
Well, you didn't. You didn't provide a single piece of evidence.
Graphs on hand. Yeah, I don't have graphs on hand like ready. I just kind of called on a whim. But
aren't you on a phone?
I mean, yeah, dude. But I'm on.
Every phone has access to the internet. Every phone call I've ever been on, I can hit the speaker button, swipe up, and go into my web browser, and it does not stop the phone call.
Yeah, but dude, the evidence that I presented you with was like circumstantial evidence. Like I said, it wasn't a graph.
You didn't. Yeah, you presented anecdotal evidence. There's no reason for me to believe your anecdotal evidence because guess what? You could lie.
Yeah, exactly. So you're choosing to not believe it, and I can't force you.
I'm done. Fucking Christ, dude. What's up, everybody? Thanks for watching this video, and I want to give a special shout out to my YouTube members. Their names are on the side. Membership starts at $2.99 a month, and you get early access to videos, exclusive members-only videos, and access to the Red Mirror Media Discord server. Thank you again to my members, and thanks for watching.